Welcome to the Voter Interest Project's candidate interviews for 2023. I'm Alan McPheeters, the Executive Director of the Voter Interest Project. Our mission is to provide voters with the information they need to make informed decisions about government, candidates, and ballot measures. Our focus is local. We cover Island County, its cities and towns, and various special districts, as well as the representatives from the 10th Legislative District. The 2023 elections are local and nonpartisan. We are covering 44 elective offices on this year's ballot, including mayors, city councilors, school board directors, and commissioners for hospital, port, fire, parks, and cemetery districts. 67 candidates filed for these offices during filing week in May, and we've invited all of them to do interviews for you. We also have extensive coverage of these elections and the actions of these government agencies on our website, voterinterests.com. The following interview is with Marion Jouas, a candidate for Commissioner Position 1 at the Whidbey Island Public Hospital District, WhidbeyHealth. We provided a list of potential questions to the candidate in advance of the interview. All right, good evening. Today is Monday, August 21st. We're here with Marion Jouas, who is running for Whidbey Island Public Hospital District Commissioner Position 1. Some of these titles need to be shorter.
They do.
Welcome to the Voter Interest Project.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here and get to chat with you about healthcare on Whidbey Island. It's a real passion of mine.
Outstanding. That's fantastic. Now, first, I know for the benefit of the viewing audience, I sent Marion a question about just how to pronounce your name. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did. You know, I married into a French family, so it's Jouas.
Jouas. Okay. It's so important. My last name is McPheeters. My wife's last name is Van Zeitveld. I'm usually pretty good with those things, but I just want to make sure because
yeah, it's hard when there's three vowels together.
Yeah. Okay, so now, where are you today? Are you at home or in the office? Or
yes, I'm at home in our home office up here at the top of French Road, down here on the edge of the Maxwellton Valley.
Very good. Oh, it's beautiful down there. I get down to Maxwellton once in a while.
Yeah, it is beautiful here. We have 10 acres that slope down away from the house, and we look out on our property and the Puget Sound and the Olympics. It's like living in a screensaver. It's constantly changing.
Wonderful. All right, let's start out with just a little quick biographical information about you. I think I know the answer for your question already, but are you married or single?
I'm married to Jean-Marc, who is from a French family. He served 36 years in the United States Air Force.
Wow.
And when we retired in January 2015, we came to Whidbey Island and designed and built a house here on this land. Outstanding.
So what brought you to Whidbey? We get a lot of people from the Navy who come here, but not so much with the Air Force.
Well, it was serendipity. We had decided to look in the Northwest for our forever place. Mm-hmm. And we were living in Hawaii at the time, and he sent me up here to look around the Pacific Northwest. And I looked at a lot of places, drove from one side of the sound all the way to the other, and then brought him up. And the day we drove off the Kuko ferry onto the Keystone Landing and started driving south, he said, "Yep, this is it." That's how we ended up on Whidbey.
Outstanding. So now, your husband was in the Air Force. Were you in the service as well, or what's your professional background?
Yes, I was in the Air Force, active duty for 8 years and 13 years in the reserves.
Very good.
I joined the Air Force the day I graduated from my baccalaureate program. So that was in 1984 in nursing, and served in Arizona and Texas. And then once we were married, I've served all over the world, from Okinawa and
oh, Marion, I've lost your
Germany.
I've lost your audio for a second, but you're back now. You're good.
Oh, it's a glitch in the matrix. You never know when that's going to happen. So anyway, I served all over the world, and I also served in civilian capacity. Once I was back in the reserves, then you work civilian and do the reserves on the side. So I worked in large and small hospitals all over the country, from Boston to Las Vegas and beyond.
Wow. Okay. So your professional background is in healthcare, as in nursing. So you have some grounding in what's going on at the hospital district. Outstanding.
Correct.
What kind of political or community board kind of experience? I know you're currently the president of the WhidbeyHealth Foundation. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. So throughout my life, I've been active in different boards, mostly related there to the military and when we served overseas. Some of them even international, helping out the international community outside the base, as well as military families. But here on Whidbey, I was on the Whidbey Island Center for the Arts Board for 3 years.
Okay.
And then simultaneously, I was on the board at WhidbeyHealth. But when I became president, I decided to leave Whidbey Island Center for the Arts and concentrate on the WhidbeyHealth Foundation.
Okay, very good. I'm sorry, did I hear you say you'd been on this board before? Or
I was, yes, I was on the Whidbey Island Center for the Arts Board, and I was just a board member at WhidbeyHealth Foundation, and then flew up to be president.
Okay, that's good. Glad we cleared that up. Outstanding. Have you ever run for office before?
I've not ever run for office before, except high school, and we all know how that ends.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't pretty. So I'm hoping for a better outcome this time.
Very good. Okay, so normally at about this point, I'd say what motivated you to become a hospital commissioner? I guess maybe that's still a valid. I mean, clearly you have an interest in healthcare and in WhidbeyHealth, but what made you decide to make the move to being a hospital commissioner?
Well, I think you have to kind of be dedicated to wanting independent healthcare on Whidbey Island to be a public hospital district commissioner, because the terms for a public hospital district commissioner are 6 years. Right. So I'm looking at dedicating 6 years of my life to WhidbeyHealth and ensuring that we keep this vital healthcare resource here on the island. I also served on the levy lift committee, which a few years ago, I know, raised taxes for the levy for the hospital, but it was the first time in over 50 years anyone ever asked for any more tax money for the hospital. So I do have to, say I think it was okay after 50 years to ask for some money.
I didn't realize it had been that long. That's a long time.
Right. They had never really ever asked for money from inception to increase the tax levy. So that was done, and that has helped, but it's only a very, very small portion of the operating budget, but WhidbeyHealth is very happy to have it. And it was very instructive to do that levy lift. I learned a lot about public hospital districts and the hospital itself, even more in its administrative capacity through that project. And I've helped raise, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I helped raise, money over the last 4 years, also during COVID, for equipment and for capital improvements at WhidbeyHealth. And so through that, I've worked closely with the staff and the administration in doing that. And our board for the foundation is very careful on how we give our money out. We ensure that it's something that is really needed. And so we're very prudent with the public's funds.
Very good. That pivots us to something that I've wondered about. And it kind of touches on something that Ron Tellis said before he left the hospital. There was some talk that maybe the right move for WhidbeyHealth would be to get acquired by a for-profit hospital corporation. I sense that you think that would be a bad idea, but can you tell us why we need a public hospital district?
Well, that's a really good question, and one that you see frequently on social media whenever people start debating about WhidbeyHealth and how it's doing either financially or what other services they could have. And it's always, maybe they should be bought out by Providence or Swedish or Peace Health or Dignity Health. And so the reason, there's 2 or 3 reasons why you don't want to do that. One reason is independence. And so as a public hospital district, your elected commissioners set the tone for your hospital, and the CEO, who is the only hire of the public hospital district commissioners, he's the only employee of the hospital district that the commissioners control. They hire him or her and hope and monitor them to ensure that they are good stewards of the healthcare system, that they're listening to the population. Are they doing assessments to see what people need and what are the trends in healthcare, what are the trends in rural healthcare, and how do we target those trends to our population. So say we did sell out. One of the first things a large corporation is going to do is evaluate what services they can cut, because some of our services operate at a very thin margin or maybe even a loss, but there are services that we need in our community. They don't really care about that. They're going to look at the bottom line. So what do you want to cut? Do you want to cut the infusion service? Do you want to cut pediatric rehab and therapeutics that is booked all the time? Do you want to cut the CT scan and MRI machine because they're going to want to send you over to Providence or Swedish to use their services over there, so they get the revenue directly over to their specialists all the time? Maybe they'll send you over there for surgery that can wait. Oh, we'll schedule over there. We don't really need to have too much inpatient surgery at WhidbeyHealth anymore. So those would all be losses to our community. Secondly, corporations, they make decisions 2,000 or 3,000 miles away, and they make them oftentimes in a cookie cutter fashion. So do you want, your healthcare made by some bureaucrat sitting far away who has no idea about what it's like to live on an island with a bridge and a ferry, and how long it is sometimes, particularly in the summer, to get on and off the island? And so having those services locally is very important to our population. So those are two of my reasons. And the third one is, you know what? We are Whidbey Island. We aren't Vashon. We aren't Bainbridge. We aren't the San Juans. We're Whidbey Island, where 50 years ago, some very astute community members with foresight looked ahead and said, by darn, we deserve to have a hospital here on this island. And they went through the hoops of the state to get it done. They raised money. They hired a CEO, and they created Whidbey General Hospital. And they did it for themselves and for their families and for their future children and generations that would be here. And I don't think it should be on our watch that we fail in that mission. We deserve a hospital on this island, but it's incumbent on all of us to help maintain it and to lead it into the future. And I want to be part of that.
Oh, very good. You said something a little bit ago that I wanted to circle back to, and that is that the public funds, the money that comes in through the levy, is a very small part of the operating expense of the hospital. How big a part is that?
It's about 1%.
1%.
Yeah, it helps, but it's about 1 to 2%.
Okay. I did not know. I actually had no idea what that number was going to come out to be. So very good.
We're very happy to have it. And we really, it's really enjoyable when the people in the county write the check and the money comes in. And it does help us meet all of our expenses, but only to that amount. Most money in rural hospitals comes from, patients' expenditures from insurance money.
Right. That actually was a big part of the problem, right? That WhidbeyHealth had not done a good job in its billing department actually trying to get the money that the hospital earned from patients. And I gather that a lot of that has been solved. But do you have experience in your professional experience that would help you make sure that stays on track? Or is maybe that not the part of the district that fits into your wheelhouse?
Well, I think that all falls into the oversight that the commissioners have. So yes, you should look at the monthly financials carefully. You should have conversations with the CFO. There are commissioners who sit on the finance committee, so they have very in-depth conversations with the CFO. Not all the commissioners do that, but all commissioners could probably sit in and listen, which would be probably a pretty good idea on a regular basis. I did go to school for a master's degree in health systems management, so I can read a financial report. Not that it's very exciting, but I can do it. The CFO that they have now really does a great job. If you watch any of the meetings that occur on a monthly basis, he does a very good job of creating graphics, and visuals are always helpful in understanding budgets and expenses and inputs and outputs. And so I think that is very important for our community. Transparency is a word that's very easily said and often overused these days. And I am happy to say that with this new CEO and CFO and the management company that they have hired since they've been there, there's been a lot more actual transparency seen through the finances than had ever been in the past.
Oh, very good. So you mentioned something that some commissioners sit on the finance committee. There are a variety of committees, I assume, that are subcommittees that the commissioners have. Is there a particular area, one of those committees, that you're most interested in, or that you think your skills lend themselves to best?
I believe credentialing is interesting because that's bringing on new providers.
Right.
So it's interesting to sit on that committee. I would say if they have anything related to quality or nursing, I'm pretty well versed in those areas as far as quality of care within the institution. I'm pretty well versed in those and would be interested in doing that.
Very good. Very good. What do you think is, now that the crisis seems to have passed, so you're down to, I think, single-digit days of cash on hand, and those days have passed us now. What do you see as the biggest challenge for WhidbeyHealth going forward?
Well, days cash on hand, which had been one of the functions they were monitoring, isn't always the best monitor of financial status, but it was one, and yes, they are up significantly in that area. They would like to have 100, and they're not there yet, but they're working diligently on it. So what are some of the issues facing the district now? Would be big one is improving the image of WhidbeyHealth.
Yes.
You can hear a variety of things within the community. I heard one recently that the hospital is completely not accredited, has not been accredited for a long time. It shouldn't even be open. And that's entirely not true. It is accredited by the DNV, which is actually international accreditation group. And they're very helpful. They come in and do sometimes spot surveys, sometimes scheduled. And surveys, they come in and ask questions and go to different units and go to different areas and look at different parameters. And then they come back and tell you, yes, you met everything here, or you didn't really meet the highest standard in this documentation area. It wasn't dangerous. It's not a big negative, but here's how you can improve. And that's invaluable when you have a second set of eyes come in and say, you're doing okay. Here's how you can do better. So the image of WhidbeyHealth needs to be corrected. The CEO, Nathan, I've had conversations with him in my function as foundation president, and he is very dedicated to going out in the community and educating people more on WhidbeyHealth and where it's going and all the good things that are happening there. But I tend to think that as an elected official, commissioner should actually be very strong in advocacy for the hospital, and that the commissioners need to be out more and go to different community events, different Rotary groups, even have town halls and things to really be able to listen to the people. I think that's so important, to listen to people's concerns and then give them clear, concise information and take their name and refer them to the person at the hospital that can help them. No one's ever going to have all the answers, but the key is to know where to send people to get the help that they need. Of course, money is always an issue. Money is always going to be an issue. It's a national issue in healthcare. It's a national issue in rural hospitals. Many of them are closing. And at the Rural Healthcare Forum, there was a representative from the State Healthcare Association who said, WhidbeyHealth is actually looking very good, is really starting to recover, and may even eventually be a model for how to do that in the future. So if anyone hasn't watched the Rural Healthcare Forum that was held a couple of months ago, is very informative and gives you a new perspective on healthcare on Whidbey Island. So monetarily, I think we can do a few things. Obviously, more use of the facility by a variety of patients with variety of different pay sources. Medicare reimburses at a kind of low rate. We have Medicaid patients in the community. We have TRICARE in the community, which is the military insurance, and that reimburses at slightly below Medicare rate as well. That's an issue that we can elevate to our representatives on the national level, Larson and Cantwell and Patty Murray,
Right.
and say, we have a Navy base here, and their hospital is closed down essentially just for a clinic. So their ER, their maternity, their surgeries some of them need to come to WhidbeyHealth. We need extra money to help take care of those patients. Let's work on that together. Let's be a model. Let's WhidbeyHealth be a model for the future in how we can get additional monies for the Navy patients in a rural healthcare system.
That's interesting. I hadn't given that much thought. It's a similar problem to the city of Oak Harbor's problem with the clean water facility, because the Navy didn't participate. As I understand it, there's a problem with the procurement schedules at the Department of Defense. They just couldn't participate in the construction of the facility, and the city's trying to get them to sort of backfill and help them out with that. But I can see where that'd be a similar issue for the hospital district as well.
It's really seen in school districts. So outside military bases, when there's schools that military students attend, the military students' families, many of them live on base. So there's no tax base for the families that live there, plus all the land area covered by the base.
Right.
There's no tax revenue there to help fund your schools. So a long time ago, Congress passed what they call impact money. It gets cleared every year, and it's legislatively set. It goes to the DoD. The DoD hands it out to schools that are impacted by having the base there. So we would like to see impact money for hospitals impacted by military bases. And that's a long-term goal. Obviously, you don't turn Congress on a dime, but the more we squeak the wheel, perhaps we'll get noticed, and we could be a test for how it works out. We'd really like WhidbeyHealth to be that test. I would anyway.
Yeah, sure. That totally makes sense. Taking a look at my notes for other things I wanted to ask you. Well, while I'm looking at this, I'm assuming then if you're elected, you would have to leave your position with the foundation. Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
Yes, I would.
Yes, that makes sense. Nope, that's it. I run out of questions. Bad planning.
Was there another glitch in the matrix? I kind of saw that happening. As I said, I'd like to improve the image of WhidbeyHealth. I'd like to get public recognition also for a lot of our staff. Mm-hmm. We have staff that run award-winning departments, and the community doesn't know that. And I'd like to get more, as having been a worker and employee of healthcare for a very long time, I'd like to really recognize those individuals and teams that are doing great work at WhidbeyHealth and serving our community. So to get that more out in the public eye, I think would be an excellent idea.
Absolutely. I told this story to Greg Richardson when we interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. When my wife and I moved to Whidbey Island in 2016, not long after we moved up here, my mother-in-law, who was in her late 80s, early 80s back then, took a stumble outside the house. And so we wanted to take her to the hospital to make sure that she was taken care of. She was okay. And she was adamant about going to Island Hospital. She did not want to go anywhere near Whidbey General, which mm-hmm. is the question or the concern that you have. So clearly talking about accreditation is part of that, and recognizing your providers in the way you were just talking about. Are there any other pieces of how you turn public perception around about the hospital district? And is that the commissioner's job?
I think advocacy for the enterprise, for the organization that you are elected to represent is a big part of the job. Now, by the revised code of Washington, the commissioners have two jobs: financial oversight, strategic planning and hire the CEO. That's the other part of it. But I would say that it's no good being elected to someplace that you're not proud of, someplace that you don't want to advocate for, that you don't want people, if people don't use the hospital, then there is no more hospital eventually, and then there's no more need for commissioners. So I absolutely think it is. We cannot lobby. That is not something that we're allowed to do. We can talk to elected representatives, and maybe reflect problems that we're having, but we can't lobby on behalf formally of any, particular thing that we want. So in that way, that has to limit our advocacy. But I think the best way to know what WhidbeyHealth is to go use WhidbeyHealth, because there were a lot of people that didn't know about the walk-in clinic down in Clinton. And then you run into them a couple months, 3 months later, and they go, oh, that's a great place. I don't have to go over and get my lab work. I need an x-ray. I just walked in there. Those of us on the South End, it's very convenient for us. And it's open on the weekends, and it's great. And so and then they're like, WhidbeyHealth is great. So the best way to know about WhidbeyHealth is to use WhidbeyHealth. Fair
enough. You mentioned before, and this is unusual in elective offices around here. This is a 6-year term. Okay, so this is 2023. If you're elected, you'll take office in January 2024. When 2029 comes around, you are on the ballot for re-election. What do you want to point back to say, hey, this is why you should send me back for another term? This is what we accomplished. This is how we made WhidbeyHealth better. Do you have a benchmark or a specific thing that you'd like to be able to point to in that kind of scenario?
Well, I really like, obviously, use of the facility to increase. I'd like it to be on firm financial footing, which is difficult to say in the healthcare environments we face today all across the nation. But I'd like it to be breaking even, hanging in there. Is probably about the best a lot of health systems can hope for. I'd like people to make it their healthcare system of choice that they choose to go to, not, oh my gosh, I have to go to the ER at 3 a.m. and this is the closest one. I'd like to say, instead of like your relative said, take me to Island, I'd like people from Anacortes to say, take me to WhidbeyHealth. That would be a really great metric. And one more thing I just wanted to add about the importance of WhidbeyHealth on this island. So my military training taught me to look at contingencies, bad things that can happen. And because we have a bridge and we have the ferry, it's very important to keep this facility here. The new wing and everything is built to earthquake standards. So should there be an earthquake, it would probably survive. If there's a major ferry accident, it runs into the dock here. If there's a major aircraft accident either on the base or into a building out in the community, if there's a disaster at the shipbuilding company down in Freeland, Nichols Brothers, if there's God forbid, a really big fire somewhere, an industrial accident on the base, we have immediate care here to start saving people. And that's so important. And it's priceless when you need it. So that's really another reason I'd like to keep the healthcare here.
Outstanding. We're coming up towards the end of our time. So what is the best way for people to find out more about you and your campaign? Is it a Facebook page or web page, or where should we send people?
Yeah, there's a Facebook page, Marion for Our Healthcare.
Okay.
Is the Facebook page. And there may be a website by that name popping up soon.
Very good. Now, the 4 politicians candidates often, is that 4 FOR or 4 the number 4?
4 the number.
Okay, perfect. All right. Marion, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about the hospital district and your campaign. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. It's been a pleasure to meet you. I hope I get to see you in person and not just on a screen sometime.
I'm sure we will. Thanks very much. Take care.
All right. Take care. Take care, Whidbey.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching our interview with Marion Jouas, who's running for the commissioner position number 1 at the Whidbey Island Public Hospital District. We invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, available in 4 local editions: Camano Island, North Whidbey, Central Whidbey, and South Whidbey. The newsletter arrives in your mailbox every Monday morning with news and events from your part of Island County. Subscribe to our newsletter at voterinterests.com/subscribe. And look for more of these candidate interviews as the election season continues. Thank you and good night.